Are you feeling overwhelmed about the thought of buying your first home? You're not alone. The journey to homeownership can be a maze of confusion and intimidation, especially when you're uncertain about where to even begin. But don't worry, because in this video, I'm here to guide you through every step of the way so you can become a homeowner. First, you want to determine if you're ready to buy a home, and not just financially, but emotionally. The home buying process can be pretty stressful and a roller coaster, so you want to make sure that you're ready to handle all the different emotions that can come up during the home buying process. Then, of course, are you financially ready? You want to assess your current financial situation. What's your income? What debt do you have, like student loans, car payment, credit card debt, all that kind of stuff? What's your debt to income ratio, or DTI? Add up all of your monthly debts and your expected monthly housing payment. Divide by your gross monthly income. This will give you a percentage, and this is your debt to income ratio. Most lenders want your DTI to be around 43%, but this will depend on your lender and loan requirements. Also, you may not want to have a DTI of 43% and opt to have a lower house payment, and I'll talk about more about that later. What does your savings look like? Do you have money saved up for a down payment and closing costs? Do you have an emergency savings fund? Now, this isn't 100% necessary, but it's good to have if you're able to. Are you going to pull savings from your 401k? Have you researched the penalties and taxes you would have to pay? All that kind of stuff. What's your credit score? Depending on the kind of loan you're getting, the credit score that you'll need to get the best borrowing terms can vary. It's probably best to speak with a lender about what your credit score goal should be. Are you able to do anything to raise your credit score? Having the best credit score you're able to have can help you get the best borrowing terms for your situation. You've assessed your financial situation. Now you want to set your budget. There are many different ways to come up with your budget. I mentioned you want a DTI of around 43%, but that's more for the lender. What do you want your monthly expenses to look like? One of the common guidelines used for setting up a budget is the 28-36 rule for calculating how much you can afford to spend on housing. That means that 28% of your gross monthly income would go toward your mortgage payment, including property taxes, insurance, HOA fees, mortgage insurance, and any other fees associated with homeownership, but not utility bills, things like that. Then the 36% is what all of your debt should be. So you take your housing payment and all the other stuff that we talked about, mortgage insurance and all that, and then you add in any other debt that you might have, like car payment, credit card, student loans, things like that. So this is different than the 43% guideline. Ultimately, whatever method you use, you want to make sure you can comfortably afford your monthly payment. Some other things you'll want to budget for are one-time costs like down payment, closing costs, and potential home repairs. Down payments can vary. You can typically put as low as 3% and do as much as you want. Many people have a goal of 20% because then you can avoid paying mortgage insurance. Now, this can be a lot of money, and many people may not be able to save that much money for a home. There are down payment assistance programs that you could qualify for. There are some national, state, and local programs that can help you with your down payment and even your closing costs. As a general rule, closing costs are about 3 to 6% of your purchase price. Once you have a basic understanding of your finances, then you want to reach out to a lender to get pre-approved. Now let's talk about the difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval. Pre-qualification is when you tell your lender how much you make, your debts, things like that. And then pre-approval is actually showing your lender your pay stubs, bank statements, all that kind of fun stuff. A pre-approval is viewed more favorably by sellers, and some real estate agents won't show you a home until you have a pre-approval. Once you're pre-approved, compare that with your budget. A lot of times the amount that you're approved for is more than what you want to pay monthly on your home. Talk with your lender so they can guide you to a purchase price that fits within your monthly budget. Now let's talk about choosing a realtor. A real estate agent is your key to getting into a house, literally, right? But what else should they do for you? So they guide you through the home buying process. You can use them as a resource to get other vendors like a lender, home inspector, things like that. Your real estate estate agent should be a housing expert in your market. They know the market trends, what's going on, the current home prices. They help you price out homes by doing comps or comparative market analysis, where you try to figure out how much a home is worth in the current market. They also help in negotiating the deal, and I can help you find a realtor. The link is in the description. Now it's time to find your home. It's important to make a list of priorities for your ideal home. You want to make it detailed, but not too detailed where the home doesn't even exist. Figure out what things are a deal breaker and what your must-haves are. Consider different types of properties like single family, condo, townhouse. Which one will work best for your situation? Then you want to start to narrow down neighborhoods that you want to live in. Is there a particular school zone or school district you want to live in? Are there certain amenities that you like in your neighborhood or close by where you live, like a community pool or a gym? What is your maximum commute time? I talk about these items and more in my free homebuyer course. The link is in the description. Now, once you found the home that you want, now it's time to make an offer. How do you come up with the price? So, in my experience, the realtor, they do comps, right? The comparative market analysis. It can be difficult in this market to find good, accurate comps because there aren't lots of sales compared to before. Your realtor may or may not give you an exact price to offer on the home. I like the data to speak for itself. Property conditions can make this difficult sometimes, so I'll add my input if the buyer would like guidance. What I try to stay away from is telling the buyer, hey, if you offer this amount of money, you're gonna get the home, no problem, because you never really know. You really have to go by the comps, and ultimately, the price that you offer is the price that you're happy with spending for that home. Then there are contingency. A contingency is a clause that buyers include when making an offer on a home that allows them to back out of buying the house if the terms of the clause aren't met. So some examples of that would be the inspection period, appraisal, and financing. Market conditions can affect price and contingencies. So if you're in a very competitive market, you may need to be aggressive with your purchase price and potentially consider waiving contingencies. I don't really recommend waiving contingencies, but there are situations where it feels like if you're ever going to get your offer accepted, you have to waive contingencies. Speak with your real estate agent about it and make sure you understand the consequences of waiving contingencies. These are meant to protect you. If you waive them, you have less protection. When making an offer, I contact the listing agent to find out what's important to the sellers in an offer. A lot of times it's going to be the highest offer price, right? But it can be other things like the most solid buyer that seems like they're most likely to be able to close. Now, if you're flexible, maybe you could do a quick closing or a slower closing, allow the sellers to occupy the house after you purchase, and there are other things that can make your offer more appealing to the seller depending on their situation. Then there's negotiation. So sometimes after sending an initial offer, the seller might send a counteroffer. It's best to go over the counteroffer with your real estate agent. They can guide you on the best way to move forward. You can accept the counteroffer as is, or you could always counter their offer if you wanted. Then there's the earnest money. In most contracts, you may offer the seller an earnest money deposit. This is a way to protect the seller if you don't follow through with your end of the deal. They want to make sure you're a serious buyer. You can talk with your real estate agent to find out how much the earnest money deposit usually is in your market and what things may come up where you could lose your earnest money deposit. This will vary in market and area. Where I live, the earnest money deposit is usually 1% to 2% of the purchase price. Assuming you didn't waive the inspection period, you'll have a home inspection done on the home you plan to purchase. This protects the buyer. You want to learn everything you can about the home to make sure this is the right home for you and it's in a condition that's acceptable to you. The inspection can be a bit nerve-wracking and overwhelming. Sometimes you get the inspection report and there's hardly anything on it. And then there are other times where you get the inspection report back and you wonder how the house is still standing. You want to consult with your real estate agent and refer to your contract, but usually you're able to negotiate repairs or terms of the contract if things come back on the inspection report that you would like addressed before buying the home. You want to work closely with your agent to make sure they know exactly what items you want repaired or concession money from the seller or whatever method is decided. You want you and your real estate agent to be on the same page when they negotiate on your behalf. There are other steps in the due diligence period like permit and lien search, clearing the title, and a few other things. During your inspection period, I think it makes sense to visit the neighborhood multiple days and at different times of the day. This will give you a good idea about what it would be like to live in that neighborhood. Is the neighborhood too loud? Is your potential new neighbor the neighborhood gossip and kind of weird? You can learn lots about the neighborhood just by visiting a few times. If there's an HOA or condo association, I think it's very important to go over the HOA documents and learn as much about the HOA as possible. You can meet with the community manager to have them answer any questions that might come up about the HOA. After the due diligence period and all that stuff, it's time to close. There's usually a title company involved to help you close on your home. You want to work closely with them to make sure you're able to close on time. They're the ones that get all of the paperwork ready for you to sign. Also, during the closing process, you'll do a final walkthrough of the home. This is to make sure that the home is in a condition that you and the seller have agreed upon. It's usually in your contract what the responsibility is of the seller as far as what kind of condition the home must be in. The final walkthrough is usually the day before or the day of closing. Once you've done the final walkthrough and you signed all your documents and the money clears, you're officially a homeowner. For the pros and cons of being a homeowner, check out this video or this playlist for first-time homebuyers. If you have any real estate questions, my contact information is in the description below. Thanks for watching to the end, especially if you're a subscriber.